Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 430 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out 2 months ago. It's called The Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I still consider myself a Long Island guy, even though I've lived in Nashville for the last 12 years. I still have my 516 cell phone number that I will never give up. I have a fondness for Long Island bagels and pizza. Robert Moses is still my favorite beach location. And anytime that we get to talk to a Stony Brook University alumnus about all things Long Island, we will definitely take that opportunity. Let's talk today to the Greatness Activator. It's Natalie Spellman, a Transformational Success Coach, a mental health clinician, occupational therapist, author, transformational speaker, even a U.S. combat Marine. She is empowering individuals to unlock their potential, to overcome challenges, and to find purpose. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Michael, thank you so much for having me on this great show.
Listen, it is my pleasure. I mean, I love talking to you. I think you have great energy, and I think you have so much great information to share with our listeners. And so, let's talk a little bit about your undergraduate experience, because I know you actually went to Stony Brook for undergrad and your master's degree too.
Yes.
So
yes,
I'm wondering, why did you end up choosing Stony Brook of all places?
So the great thing here is that before I went to the military, I was actually had the intention to go to Stony Brook. But I went to community colleges because I didn't thought I was good enough to actually go straight to Stony Brook. So I went to Suffolk Community College. I went to Farmingdale, just trying to get my prerequisites. And then when I was in Suffolk Community College, that's when I met the Marine Corps recruiter. And he just sold me the moon. He told me all the intangible traits, all the things that I could acquire in the Marines, and great this, the intangible traits, honor, courage, and commitment. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a boring kid. I'm such a bookworm. I'm a nerd. What does it mean like to go on the hero's journey? So I took the Marine Corps recruiters sound bites and I left college and I went to the Marines and I did my 4 years, but in my heart, I just wanted to be an occupational therapist. I just like the entire holistic approach to treating the person. And when I came back home, I went to Stony Brook. The plan that I had 4.5 years prior was truly activated when I got home from the Marines, because I truly knew that, yes, I want to be a therapist. I want to be the one to treat the entire person. And then I kind of really felt like I was in my niche. So that was amazing. So Stony Brook was the best choice on Long Island for occupational therapy.
I love that you had that dream and you stuck to it, even though you stepped away for a little bit. You went right back to where you wanted to go, which is fantastic. And of course, thank you for your service as a U.S. Combat Marine. That's just incredible work. I'm wondering, how did the military shape you as a person?
I love this question because growing up, I was the kid who was the nerd. My self-esteem was so low. I didn't believe in myself. I just felt the need to hide in, to bunker in. I just felt like I wasn't good enough or worthy enough because of my upbringing. And I just felt like I didn't quite fit in. So when I went to the Marines, I was the one kid that I was always being picked on. I remember when I first got to boot camp and I got off that bus, that big bus. And when you get to boot camp, you have to step on the yellow footprints. And I remember when I got off that bus and they started yelling and screaming, get on the recruit, recruit, recruit. I was like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? And I remember a drill instructor rather, he zoned in on me. And when he zoned in on me, he just started yelling and screaming, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is not a walk in the park. This is the real deal. This is the Marine Corps. And for the entire time I was in boot camp, I was the weakest link. I'll be honest, I was the weakest link. And I was the last one online. I was the one who was always laughing. I was always on the quarterdeck pushing. I was always in the sandpit. I was always getting in trouble. And the drill instructor decided to play a trick on me. They're like, you're failing your platoon. You're the weakest link. And to solve that problem, we're going to put you in charge. So they put me in charge, Michael. And before you know it, I had to step it up. I had to dig deep. I had to take charge. Before you know it, I was the one that was outshining. I was actually putting my weapon together within 10 seconds. I was the one just motivating. I was the one inspiring people. I had to dig deep. I realized that I had grit. I never thought I had grit. And I remember going through the 3 months of training. And in the Marines, you have to go through the crucible. That's like the rite of passage. When you go through the crucible, that is when you get your ego, globe, and anger. That is when you actually get the declaration to say that you're a United States Marine. And I remember that last hump, 17 miles going back to the quarterdeck. And I remember I had pneumonia. I was sick. I couldn't eat. And I was at my breaking point. And when I look back, I was like, you started here weak. You didn't have anything. And now you're about to get to the point where your title of a Marine is on the line. So I remember singing the loudest. I remember marching the furthest. I remember just digging deep. And I was like, you have to earn this title. And when I got back to that quarterdeck and they started playing the music, I'm so glad to be an American. I'm so glad I'm free. And when that colonel stepped in front of me and he saluted and said, congrats, Marine, I remember feeling the tears just streaming down my face because that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And by the time we had the warrior breakfast, I was in the emergency room. Wow. I couldn't eat because I was actually functioning on empty. It was full mental work. It was just one of those deep, deep moments where I had to dig deep in agony and pain and get it. And I realized that no matter how weak you think you are, we all have a hero within. We have some grit. We have some strong tenacity. We have strong resilience. We just got to persevere to that goal, to that dream, to that vision, so we can achieve what we truly want.
Wow, that's an incredible story. That gives me chills just thinking about it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you can do much more than what you think you can do. And you obviously pushed yourself to much further than what you ever think you had within you. So that certainly taught you quite a lot, clearly. You've also had some really difficult times in your life. You had a toxic relationship that you were in. You experienced miscarriages. I'm wondering, how did you heal from all of this emotional, mental, and spiritual turmoil in your life?
I love that question. And that's a great question. And that's why I'm so passionate about mental health. I do have a therapist and I do have PTSD. I was in Iraq, I was in the war zone, and I've experienced a lot of things, a lot of challenges that female Marines experience while they're in the military. That's a whole different conversation. So when I came back home, the fact is that I did suffer in silence. I did suffer, and the relationship I was in is that because I came home broken. I had a broken heart, but yet I was supposed to function in a marriage. When you're dealing with your own trauma, your heart is so heavy, you're so wounded, you cannot show up in your relationship 100%. You cannot be truly present in a marriage. And because of those traumatic moments and the interaction with my spouse and the interaction with other people, I realized that I was a shell. I lost my identity. I was pretending to be someone else, to fit in, to be accepted. So I wasn't showing up authentically in my relationship, and the relationship became toxic for both of us because we both didn't know how to deal with trauma. And because of that, my body was in a constant state of stress. I was going through miscarriages. I was going to the hospital multiple times. And when I would get there, they were like, we don't know what's going on with you. The scans doesn't show anything that's wrong. But it was because I was carrying all the pain. The burden was so much and my body could not handle that. And when I got a miraculous healing, I guess we'll talk more about my miraculous healing later on. But what I did was that because I'm a clinician, I know all the tools about stress management, but those tools weren't working. Deep breathing wasn't quite working. Meditation wasn't quite working. So I spend my time doing research, top thought leaders in the field of mental health, in the field of neuropsychology, in the field of motivational speaking, faith-based leaders, spiritual leaders. And I looked at their work and I studied it for 3 years. And when I did that, I realized that the key for mental and emotional wellness was actually having a life purpose and a mission. And when you focus on that mission, you don't have time to internalize your pain as much because you're focusing on a bigger picture. You're focusing on the bigger scheme of your life. And when I did that, I coined the term purpose and exercise, which coins to be purposizing. So every single day, I'm on a high frequency, I'm on a high energy, and I'm living in the alignment of that vision that was my life. So because I was in alignment, I was in a state of positivity, inspirational music, inspirational content. I turned off the news. I'm sorry, I turned off the news because I needed to heal. And I was just in a state of my own bubble of healing with my therapy. And I was purposizing to help my mental, spiritual, and emotional health.
You're talking about mission and vision and all of those things I think are important. You're now known as the Greatness Activator. But, the reality is that a lot of college students out there are trying to figure out what their mission and vision is. What is their path in life? So how do you figure out what your purpose is?
That's a great question. I remember as a kid, I was always drawn to helping and being impacted. And every time I wrote my paper, ever since I was a little kid, the words I would write on my paper, I'm going to make a global impact in my global village. I'm going to make a positive impact in my global village. And every year until I got to college, I was writing the same thing. I'm going to make a global impact in my global village. And it was me getting a sense of my purpose from a very tender age. So how do you know what the vision of your life is? Well, for you to know the vision of your life, there are several ways you could do it. We all have a divine purpose. And if you sit still long enough in a moment of silence, away from distraction, and you zone in and you ask the question, what is my life's purpose? And what's my vision? You'll be surprised. You'll get a snapshot of you doing something dynamic, of you doing something significant, of you doing something that's unique and is impacting the life of somebody else. You will actually see the vision. The vision I always have in my mind, I can tell you this right now. I saw myself on stage. I saw myself speak, and I saw myself standing in an audience where the audience was so moved by my speech, and they were crying, they were inspired, they were standing, they were applauding. The energy in the room was dynamic, and it was so powerful because of the words coming out of my mouth. This snapshot has always been in my head. So that's one way. The dreams you have when you're younger, when you're a kid, when you're a teenager. And sometimes when we activate a dream, it also releases another dream, another vision as well. And there's a whole process I talk about in my book and in my online program. But that's just a quick way for anyone who's trying to figure out what their vision is. If you sit still long enough and ask the question, you'll be amazed of what you could see of what you're doing dynamically and powerfully in the world.
I like that visualization. I like that. You have these 5 steps to stepping into greatness. Maybe it would help our audience just kind of talking about what those steps are to step into greatness.
So the 5-step is, like I said, I did all the research, and I'm so nerdy and I'm such a researcher. Everything I learned, I'm very visual, so I like to make things into simpler steps. So the summary and the sequence and the steps of things, the 5 steps happens to be the story framework. Story, you got to know who, right? You got to know what, why, when, how, and where, right? So those are the steps. But recently I added a call on your life. We all have on a hero's journey. We are all on a hero's journey. And when we know this story about the hero's journey, there's a call to adventure. And sometimes we're stagnant and we're stuck because we don't realize that there's a special call, there's a special whisper, no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what you've been through. We're all called uniquely to do something different in the world to impact somebody else's life, no matter what your circumstances are. So it's no longer a 5-step process. It's now a 6-step process. But like I indicated before, you have to first see the vision. When you have the vision of your life, you get a snapshot of what you're doing, of who you are in that vision. You get a snapshot of what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and when you're doing it. And those sequence, it gives you the complete snapshot of what you're supposed to do in life. And each of your vision, each of your dream gives you the secret as to how to live a meaningful and an impactful life.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Also, you talk a little bit about different functional identity types.
Oh,
What
goodness.
did you mean by that?
um, so as an occupational therapist, I deal with function. How do you function holistically in your life? How do you function? How do you engage in the different areas of your life?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that as a clinician, as an occupational therapist, I cannot do diagnosing in terms of, okay, I cannot diagnose patients. However, I realized that we all have a story. And all our stories pretty much defines who we are. It affects the way we think. Our stories affect the way we feel. It affects the way we act and the way we function. I'm adding the word function here.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sat long enough, I realized that people get stuck because of their stories. People can't move because of their stories. And because of your story, your function in life, the way you show up in life is so affected based on how you see and you view yourself. So when I looked at the workout, there was a researcher, I think he came up with the whole narrative identity. I was the one like, okay, there's a functional identity, but what about your function aspects? So I did the research on that. So these are the 6 functional identity. The first one is a person, the first stage, I'm going to read it off here. The first one is a desponder. A desponder is a person who just, life is so hard, circumstances are so hard, I just give up. Life is happening to me. Because life is happening to me, I can't function, I'm stuck, I'm stagnant, I can't move forward because life is so bad. So instead of you being in control of your life, life is happening to you. And because of that, you can't function. You're just existing. You're not living. The other one is the detacher. The detacher is a person who could care less. Life has happened. I'm callous. I'm hard. I could care less. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care what the consequences are. I'm just going to live life and I don't care what the consequences are. The other one is a sabotager. It's a person whose trauma, pain is sabotaging them no matter how they try in life. They're trying to be the best person, but the low self-esteem, the limiting beliefs, the imposter syndrome, everything is holding them back. And they try a business, they try to go to college, they try to be the best person. But those sabotaging things from the subconscious mind sabotages the way they function, they show up in their relationship, how they show up in their work, how they function in every area of their lives. And survivor. A lot of us have gone through different stories, different events. And sometimes we feel the need just to survive. We're barely making it. We go through one thing and then there's another thing. You're constantly putting the fires out in your life and you're trying, but you're just barely surviving. And the next one is you being an overcomer. You've been through some stuff. You've been through some challenges, but yet you're making strides, you're moving forward, you're making progress, you have a vision, you have a goal, you're moving forward in life, you're overcoming obstacles, your mindset is better, and you're charging forward. But the best one is this, at the top of the line, is you becoming, is the becomer. You're becoming your future self. You're becoming the best version of yourself. You're showing up in your life at a peak. You're contributing, you're impacting, your life is filled with abundance. And when you're filled with abundance, you're attracting wealth, you're attracting everything in your life because you're living in a state of abundance and you're becoming that future self that you've captured in your vision. So those are those 6 categories that I came up with.
Wow, incredible stuff. Really, really good. Our college students right now, they are so stressed out. What
Yes.
is your advice for stress management?
So I love this question because when I first started my research in my book is called Drop Stress Like a Hot Potato.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realized that as a woman, I was stressed out. As a professional, I was so stressed out. But when I did the research, I realized that when you use the word stress is you're being stretched to do something that's out of your comfort zone. You're being stretched to do something that's different. It's like you're exercising. You're activating different muscles you have never activated before. So stress, in the word of stress, is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And one thing I indicated in my book, I said on page 288, stress and purpose are on the flip side of the same coin. I also said in the book is that stress could be a good thing. Stress can make you, stress can neither break you. And stress can actually be something that may activate you to your potential. But the challenge is that when stress becomes chronic, when stress becomes unmanaged, that is when we have a problem. But stress by itself is not a negative thing. And I think part of what we all need to do is that we need to spend time in self-care to work on our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, and our physical well-being. That is making sure we're managing our entire being. The holistic person needs to be managed. And I have different strategies that I talk about in the book, where there are things you could do within 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So there are so many creative ways to actually manage, to actually take care of unmanaged stress.
That's really good. What else would the readers learn in your new book? It's called Drop Stress Like a Hot Potato. Anything else that you can think of that would be really helpful?
Yes. So I'm such a person, I feel like I have so many experiences and so many wealth. So when I started off the book, it was just a small book that I had in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Before you know it, it expanded into a life manual. When I say life manual, I take on the role of Coach Nat, where I'm actually giving you life advice. When you're going through, let's say you're thinking of suicide, I'm coaching you through the process. No, that's not an option. When you're dealing with you want to cut yourself, I'm giving you advice like, no, that's not an option. I'm coaching you through the process. And there's a section in each part of the book, Coach Nat giving you advice. I give you the real talk sometimes where I'm like, listen, your life has a lot of meaning. You need to really evaluate yourself. So I'm giving life talk, I'm giving you tough love, I'm giving you inspiration, I'm giving you super tips, and I'm giving you the entire manual how to live your life, how to handle stress, how to live a purposeful life, how to find your purpose, how to find your mission, everything you need to know to handle your life. This book has 288 pages. It's a manual, it's a workbook, and it covers every area of your life. And I think at some point it needs to be turned into a college course. That's my opinion, because it's like a life course manual for every situation.
Wow, that's incredible. Very comprehensive. Drop Stress Like
Yes.
a Hot Potato. That is the name of the book. I was also really curious about your process in terms of putting together a life roadmap for a client. Like, how do you do that?
You know what? I love being an occupational therapist. And part of what I do is that every time we meet with a patient, we do an occupational profile. You have to know the person's demographic, and you also have to know what areas they're struggling with. What's the weakness? What's the problem areas? What are your goals? What are your inspiration? And when I know what your areas are where you're struggling, I can actually create a plan. I do treatment plans every single day. That's why I love what I'm doing now, because it's transferring occupational therapy skills into coaching skills. And what I do is that I do treatment plans every day. I write goals every single day, multiple times a day. So now I know what areas to target on. So when I know what your vision is, what is your vision in terms of your personal growth? What is your vision in terms of your relationship? What is your vision in terms of your finances? What's the vision in those 6 key areas of your life, right? So when I know what those areas are, based on your weaknesses, based on the problem areas, we know how to capture the vision for those areas. And when you capture the vision, you're going to use your skills, your talents, and everything you know to create a strategy on how to get to your vision, how to get to your destination, how to get to your finish line. So it's a matter of just strategizing based on you as the whole person and what you want to achieve in your life.
Very nice. I love everything about you. I love the book. I love all the different services that you offer. I think this is just incredible. All right. So if our students, if they want to have you speak on their college campus, maybe the students want to go and buy your book, where should they go in order to connect with you and get all of this good stuff?
Alrighty. So my book, Drop Stress Like a Hot Potato, is on Amazon, and it's a great price, and I think you guys would love it a lot. If you want to reach out to me though, my email address is Natalie Spellman 07@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on my website, which is www.nataliespellman.com. www.Natalie, which is Natalie, Spellman, Spellman, NatalieSpellman.com.
Fantastic. NatalieSpellman.com. Go and check out her website. Go and buy her book on Amazon. It's called Drop Stress Like a Hot Potato. This is something that a lot of college students I know can benefit from. So, Natalie, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. This has been incredible.
Thank you, Michael. It was my honor. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this talk with Natalie today, make sure that you like this on social media. Make sure that you share it on social media. Share it with other college students that need to hear from Natalie. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.